Hello, everybody. Welcome into Sports by GSMC Podcast Network. Today is Tuesday, September 10th. I am your host, Jeremy Lapidus, and we are just coming off of the entirety of Week 1 in the NFL, where we just saw Aaron Rodgers and the Jets get absolutely destroyed by the entirety of the 49ers, minus Christian McCaffrey scratched at seemingly the last minute. We'll get into that in a little bit. That's actually what we're going to start off our show with, talking about that Monday Night Football game. Before we get into some rankings, we're doing some NFL power rankings today, talking about rookie quarterbacks as well, and then taking a swing into the world of college football, doing our own top 25 and a special top 5 group of 5, as we need to keep an eye on that for that final spot in the 12-team college football playoff. But before we get into any of that, remember, if you would like to be an even bigger part of the show than you already are, all you need to do is go to gsmcpodcast.net. Or if you are on YouTube, you can use that super chat feature. If you do either of those two things, a message should pop up on the bottom of the screen for you, me, and everybody else around the world to see. If you do have a burning question about sports, anything at all that you would like to ask, go and throw that in the comments. Throw it in the chat. I will get to it as soon as I possibly can. I appreciate everybody so much for sticking around, talking some sports with me here on a beautiful Tuesday, September 10th. But like I was saying, we are going to get into the first action on Monday night as the 49ers completely dismantle Aaron Rodgers and the Jets. And there are a lot of things that I want to focus on in this game. And we'll start off with the 49ers. The big story for the 49ers in this game, as they do end up killing the Jets 32-19, has to do with their star running back, Christian McCaffrey. Christian McCaffrey does not play, seemingly at the last moment, scratched at about 6:30 Eastern time, just before they had to announce their inactives. And that kind of threw a wrench into, a lot of people's plans, whether that be fantasy football, whether that be the Jets defense planning for this game, whether that be sports gambling. There were a lot of things that were affected by this, and yet the 49ers go out there and they still dominate on the ground. Formerly undrafted free agent Jordan Mason, out of Georgia Tech, goes out and puts on a show against what was supposed to be a vaunted Jets defense, going for 147 yards and a touchdown in his first ever start in the NFL. Incredibly impressive from him. He's a guy that blew me away. That was one of my biggest takeaways. I expected any running back in that Kyle Shanahan system to do good, but against a Jets defense, I did not expect 5-6 yards per carry, over 140 yards, 2 touchdowns. One of them got called back on a hold, and then Debo took that touchdown after taking that penalty. He went out there and he dominated. That Jets run defense looked like they could not stop anything. And maybe that's just because Kyle Shanahan is one of the best run schemers in the entirety of NFL history. But you think this Jets defense that was staunch against everything last year. Now, their run defense was a little bit of an issue, but still, they were solid against the run defense. Against the run, they weren't giving up these huge chunk plays every single time. And it's week 1. I'm not going to judge too harshly, but it was a little concerning for that Jets defense. There was also a weird situation in the second quarter where Sauce Gardner just didn't go back out on defense for about 2 or 3 drives. And the sideline reporter came in and said that he wasn't hurt at all. So that was an interesting little foil for the Jets defense as well. Not sure exactly what was going on there. But it came out after the game. Jordan Mason goes off. The NBC sideline reporter comes up and interviews him after the game, says, "When did you know you were starting? Your family's here. When did you know where you were starting?" He says, "Friday night." Now, that was a surprise to everyone in the world, because everyone in the world, like I said earlier, found out that he was starting just about an hour before game time. So the 49ers might be in some hot water for this. The NFL officially said they will be investigating this a little bit. Interesting to see what's going to come out of it. Obviously, he didn't really do anything wrong, but, maybe 49ers they did break a rule. You have to publish those injury reports for fairness, for a lot of different reasons. We don't know. He was asked again in the post-game press conference and on the press stage in front of everyone, and he said, "That's why I'm mad. I'm just going to skip this question," which means he probably got a talking to in the locker room from coaches, GMs, owner, whoever came out and said, "Hey, don't say that next time." He learned his lesson. It's not really going to matter too much. Jordan Mason went out and had a huge game, but let's turn our attention to the Jets, because that defense was a bit of an issue. They only got 2 sacks. One of those, Brock Purdy just kind of went down. The other one, he was trying to scramble, ran out of space, and also just kind of went down. They got no pressures basically all night. And you have to think, what would this game have looked like if they had Hassan Reddick? I've talked a lot about this Hassan Reddick Jets situation. It doesn't seem like it's been any closer to getting done. And this is going to be a little bit of an issue, because if they can't get pressure, Hassan Reddick was a guy that they were really counting on. They let Bryce Huff go. He ends up signing with the Eagles. They trade for the Eagles with the Eagles for Hassan Reddick. Now he wants a contract. They're not getting it done. If he's out there, I'm not saying he's going to get around Trent Williams, who's rested, one of the best players in all of football, and probably the best offensive lineman in football currently. He's not going to be able to, get a pressure on every play like we saw TJ Watt doing against the Falcons. But what we might be able to see is some pressure against this 49ers team, get some breakthrough into the backfield, pressure Brock Purdy a little bit. Instead, Brock Purdy had all day. He looked really calm and comfortable in the pocket. Trent Williams gave up no pressures. So maybe this pushes the Jets to give an extension to Hassan Reddick. Maybe this standstill just continues, but either way, I think Hassan Reddick was a winner here. Outside of that, the big conversation is around Aaron Rodgers, and I've heard a lot of conversations both ways about Aaron Rodgers, right? I thought when I was looking at him in this game, the big concern was how is he going to do coming back from an Achilles injury, and we had seen Kirk Cousins, who also suffered an Achilles injury, come back, play, and look kind of uncomfortable with his footwork in the pocket against the Steelers. Now, a lot of that might have been because he had 0 time to throw the ball, but Aaron Rodgers looked fine back there. He looked comfortable. He looked like he was able to do everything. You saw him able to process the game, which always has been his kind of superpower. The arm, he'll get better. He missed a couple throws, was late on the interception that he threw. The ball was a little late and inside on an out route, ends up getting tipped. Not 100% his fault, but a couple years ago, Aaron Rodgers probably would have put that ball in a place where it only would have been caught by Garrett Wilson or would have gone incomplete. Same thing on that 4th down where they went for the game, 4th and 1, throws a little slant, again, low and behind Garrett Wilson. If he throws that with timing and ahead of him, Garrett Wilson legit has a shot to gain 20 more yards of yak on top of that catch. He had a step on the corner there. Instead, turnover, Aaron Rodgers sits for the rest of the game. So it wasn't his best game, but I'm not expecting Aaron Rodgers, after sitting out basically 2 whole years, to just come back and be the Aaron Rodgers that we expect that he was back at that MVP level. I think there was a lot of promising signs. There was only one play that I looked at when I was watching this game that I thought, ooh, maybe he can't really run. And I'm sure you all know what I'm talking about. He rolls out, does a little spin out to the left, something that he did all the time before this injury, and he looked like he was hobbling along. He ends up getting a throw off, barely gets to the line of scrimmage, incomplete throwaway with pressure in his face. He had no power on it. He looked like he was kind of crab walking, power walking across the backfield. It just didn't look that good. Outside of that, he looked fine. He was able to move around a little bit in the pocket. He was able to do what he needed to do without that Achilles really mattering. And like I said, I think he looked fine. He did what he always did, got a touchdown on a hard count, drawing the other team off sides, hitting Allen Lazard up the seam for his only touchdown of the game. It wasn't the prettiest, and it wasn't the prettiest for all of the Jets. They couldn't get the run game going, so they didn't really have time of possession. Breece Hall fumbles on the 4th play of the game. That 4th play of the season has been kind of a mess for the Jets these last 2 seasons, of course. And they were giving up a lot of pressure to this 49ers D. And I don't want to be too hard on the Jets because I think this is a Jets team that's still really good. Their pass defense, for what it's worth, held up really well against these good receivers, these good tight ends, this weapon filled 49ers team. Brock Purdy was held to basically the same stats as Aaron Rodgers. He was a little more accurate because he didn't have that pressure in his face, but he didn't rack up that many more yards. They held him to field goals a bunch of times. I believe they kicked 5 or 6 field goals in this game. They were able to keep their team from the 49ers from scoring touchdowns, which is very, very encouraging to see. This is a defensive unit that's going to get better. The offensive unit is also going to get better now that they're together. They're going to start to become cohesive. The 49ers have been together for a long time, which is why I think they looked a little better. Again, like I said yesterday in the preview, it's going to take a bit for these teams to get going. We saw it in the first quarter, 3-and-out, fumble, 3-and-out that ended in a field goal. You know, those first 4 drives for these two teams, they didn't get anywhere. Then the Jets scored a touchdown, and then the game opened up for the 49ers. They scored on like every single drive after that. They got it going. The Jets just never were able to. I think this is a Jets team that just need a little more time against the defense that isn't as good as the 49ers, and they will be just fine. So I'm not out on the Jets yet. I think they deserve another week to check it out. I think Aaron Rodgers is still a good quarterback. Not top 5 by any means, but still a quarterback that is leagues better than Zach Wilson where they were last year in their quarterback discussion. So this is a Jets team that's still well within their chances to win the division, get a playoff game, maybe even make a deep run in the playoffs. We'll see. But let me know what you thought of that Monday Night Football game. We're going to take a quick break here. When we come back, we're going to start up with our NFL power rankings for week 2. 32-1, we're going to see where things changed, how I have them set. Let me know if you agree or disagree with me. We'll be right back going over all of that coming up next here on Sports by GSMC Podcast Network. Welcome back to Sports by GSMC Podcast Network. Today is Tuesday, September 10th. I am your host, Jeremy Lapidus. If you're just tuning in, we've just gone over the recap of the first Monday Night Football game between the 49ers and the Jets that saw the 49ers win 32-19. In this segment, we are going to get into our NFL power rankings. We did a little bit of one for week 1 preseason. After week 1, the dust have settled. We're going to get our week 2 power rankings in here. But before we get into that, remember, if you would like to be an even bigger part of the show than you already are, all you need to do is go to gsmcpodcast.net. Or if you are on YouTube, you can use that super chat feature. If you do either of those two things, a message should pop up on the bottom of the screen for you, me, and everybody else around the world to see. If you do have a burning question about sports, anything at all that you would like to ask, go ahead and throw that in the comments. Throw it in the chat. I'll take a look at them as soon as I possibly can. I appreciate everybody so much for sticking around, talking some sports with me here on a beautiful Tuesday, September 10th. But like I was saying, we're going to get into NFL power rankings. The NFL had its first week of the season in the books, and we learned a lot, I think. One of those things we learned, and starting off with our number 32 power rank, is the Carolina Panthers. The Carolina Panthers, a lot of people thought they would be bad. I thought they would be bad. I'm sure you thought they would be bad, but I would be shocked if anybody thought they were going to be this bad. They go up against a New Orleans Saints team that, well, I think the New Orleans Saints will be fine. Do I think the New Orleans Saints were put up 30 points in the first half kind of good? No. Do I think they're a win by 37 kind of good team? No. Bryce Young, a guy that I was looking to make, some big improvements under new head coach Dave Canales, did nothing. He looked even worse than he did in year one. All the progress that he seemingly had made had gone away overnight. His first throw, intercepted. He got an open receiver, overthrew him, intercepted. They could get nothing going. They got a little bit going on a 2-minute drill at the end of the half to go down 30-27 as 30-3 as opposed to 30-0 heading into the half. But this team looked awful. The defense, disgustingly bad. And we knew it was going to be bad, but we didn't think it was going to be this bad. On top of that, Derrick Brown, their best defensive player, now out for the season, getting surgery. This team is not going to get any better. They stick at their 32 spot, or they go down one spot, from 31 to 32 in week 2. At 31, I've got the New York Giants, and as much as it hurts me to say it, the New York Giants were pretty clearly the second worst team in football. Daniel Jones looked disgustingly bad. They could not get anything going on offense. Threw a pick six, and a fun stat that's been circling around for those who haven't heard it. Since Daniel Jones signed his massive contract, his $40 million a year contract, he has thrown more touchdowns to the other team than he has to his own team. That's right, more pick sixes than touchdowns Daniel Jones has thrown since he signed his contract. He's looking to do a get-right game against the Washington Commanders, a team that he famously has been good against, the only team that he has been good against. 10 touchdowns to 3 interceptions. We'll see if he can have a bounce back, but for now, the New York Giants and their ugly uniforms, oh my God, sit at spot 31, down 2 spots from where they were last week. At 30, we have the Denver Broncos. The Denver Broncos starting Bo Nix, and we'll get to Bo Nix later on in the show when we break down the rookies, but he did not look really good. He looked solid in the preseason. He could not throw a ball further than 10 yards, and that was my big criticism with him if you take a look at it. He threw 2 interceptions and was 2 for 12 on balls that were deeper than 10 yards. He could only do checkdowns, and that's not how you win football games. The Denver Broncos are in trouble this year. They're at my number 30 spot, same as they were last week. At 29, the New England Patriots get a big win. They're up 3 spots from the basement of the power rankings to number 29. They beat the Cincinnati Bengals, a team that I had very highly ranked. It wasn't very pretty. They didn't do anything great, but the Bengals just kind of lost the game themselves. The Bengals made a lot of mistakes. The Patriots didn't make mistakes, and when your team as bad as the New England Patriots are, you need to play mistake-free football. They did that. They get rewarded climbing up a couple spots above the truly horrific teams in the NFL. They slot in at number 29. At 28, we have the Las Vegas Raiders. And I've seen a lot of people kind of higher on the Raiders, but their coaching decisions I could not. They're down 1 spot from where they were last week at 27. They're here at 28. The Las Vegas Raiders, for me, are a team that has potential to be solid. They've got the weapons, right? They have Devontae Adams. They have Brock Bowers. They have Michael Mayer. They have, Jacoby Myers. They have Trey Tucker. They have the weapons to be good. And there were some small flashes in there, but the coaching staff is holding them back. In a do-or-die 4th down with about 6 minutes left to go in the 4th quarter, 4th and 1 at about the 50-yard line, down by a possession or 2, they decide to punt it. That's not how you win games in the NFL, and Antonio Pierce needs to learn that if this team is going to be successful. Until he learns that, the Vegas Raiders are sitting at 28. At 27, we have the Tennessee Titans. The Tennessee Titans are a really interesting team because their defense looks really good. Their defense looks so good, they didn't allow a single touchdown all game. They're one of 2 teams to not allow a touchdown all game and still lose. and yet they lost. And that's because the offense looked so bad, especially in that second half. Will Levis made countless unforgivable mistakes, including one where he just shovels a pass for a pick six to the Bears and then does the surrender cobra. Knees on the ground, hands on the head, just what have I done kind of pose. Not exactly what you're looking for in a quarterback to inspire confidence. I need the Titans to look up because they have a tough schedule down the road. They don't get much of a break. This is a Titans team with that defense. If they could get what the offense that they got in the first half, they could win some games. But the Bears were a very winnable game with Caleb Williams' first start. He did not do anything offensively. The Titans needed to capitalize on that, and they just were unable to do so. At 26, the Atlanta Falcons. And this is the other team, that didn't allow a touchdown offensively. They held the Steelers to 6 field goals. Defense did its job against not the best offensive unit, but Kirk Cousins looked awful. I don't really know how else to say it. You pay this man over $100 million guaranteed. It looks like he's not healthy. He can't step into his throws. He didn't look confident. He changed his entire footwork from what he's done his entire career once he got to Atlanta. I don't know if that's coaching or that's because he's trying to support his Achilles. Maybe it's time we give the rookie a chance. And this is a little early to call for it, but this is a team that has a lot of expectations. This is a team that went all in this season. They went and traded for Matthew Judon. They signed Justin Simmons. They brought in a new head coach, brought in Kirk Cousins. This was a team that was supposed to go and be a playoff contender at a minimum this year, and they are not looking like it. They need to seriously think about whether Kirk Cousins is fully healthy and ready to be the quarterback for a competitive team. If not, give Michael Penix a chance. He looked good in preseason, and maybe that's a little unfair, but this team needs to have something else going offensively. Bijan couldn't get anything because nothing was working from Kirk Cousins, and once they fell behind, it was just kind of wraps. At 25, the Cleveland Browns. And the Cleveland Browns, just look at this picture, right? That's all you need to see. Deshaun Watson looks like a shell of a shell of a shell of a shell of his former self. He could not throw the ball. He wasn't comfortable in the pocket. He was bailing out of clean pockets. He was not making accurate reads. He looked awful. And on top of that, another allegation has just come out against him. He won't be placed on the commissioner's exempt list, but this situation is quickly becoming a dumpster fire, one of the worst trades in all of NFL history. They give up so much, give him $230 million guaranteed, which was the biggest for years until Dak Prescott just broke it at $231 guaranteed. The Browns should really consider putting Jameis Winston in because they're not going to win games with Deshaun Watson back there at quarterback unless he can have a drastic turnaround. It's just a mess over there. And that entire GM coaching staff, that whole front office is going to get fired if they ride with him any longer. At 24, the Washington Commanders. Another rookie quarterback. This time the defense is holding him back. The defense is awful. Emmanuel Forbes is not a starting cornerback in the NFL. He can't match up physically with anyone. He's not big enough, not fast enough. Jaden Daniels looks solid, but that defense is really going to hold them back. The Commanders sit here at 24. At 23, the Los Angeles Chargers, and I was looking through power rankings, curious to see how close they were to mine. I saw people putting the Chargers in the top 10, and maybe I'm delusional for this. Maybe I am way too low on the Chargers here, but they just beat up on a Raiders team that has nothing defensively outside of Christian Wilkins and Max Crosby. And yes, they did a great job on them. And yes, J.K. Dobbins ran for 13 yards a carry. But do that against a good defense, and then I'll give you props. Do that against a team that you're not expected to beat, and I'll give you props. This team still looked awful offensively. Defensively, they didn't look much better, but they were going up against a Raiders team that isn't the greatest offensively. I need to see an impressive win before I vault them all the way up into the top 10. That's ridiculous to me. I don't understand it. At 22, the Minnesota Vikings. They climb 4 spots from their last ranking. They beat up on the Giants. Sam Darnold looked like he could fit in. This is what we thought he might be able to do with Minnesota, but after an abysmal preseason training camp, people were low on him. I was low on him. The Vikings offense looks like they're going to be just fine. Aaron Jones, an awesome addition. I love Aaron Jones, 94 yards and a touchdown against the Giants. The pass rushing offensive line, the pass protection, they held up good against a very solid defensive line of the New York Giants. Brian Burns, Kayvon Thibodeau, Dexter Lawrence. That's a scary defensive line trio, one of the scariest in the NFL, and they held up just fine. Sam Darnold started off the game almost perfect. He went, I believe, 13 for 13 before finally throwing an incompletion. He looked solid. He was accurate, and that's all he needs to do. If he takes care of this ball, this Vikings team could win a couple games and surprise some people. At 21, Caleb Williams and the Chicago Bears. And it shouldn't be Caleb Williams and the Chicago Bears. It should be the Bears defense and special teams and Caleb Williams. Caleb Williams was along for the ride on this one. He got a win. He should be concerned, though. Bears fans should still be optimistic. It was a first game. He threw for less than 100 yards. He didn't look elusive in the pocket. He wasn't able to get away from, albeit a solid Titans defense, but that offensive line is a bit of an issue. They need to be able to get stuff done on offense because they're not going to be able to get away with teams losing games for them, right? They scored 2 defensive touchdowns, had a bunch of turnovers. That defense is awesome. Caleb Williams just needs to figure it out, and I still think he can, but that defense is doing all the work again. It's like the Trubisky era. We need to see if a quarterback can make them true contenders. They sit at 21. Starting off in the top 20, the New Orleans Saints, who had a very impressive show of offense against a very bad team in the Carolina Panthers. Because of that, I can't move them up too much. I was able to move them up 3 spots. I don't believe their offense is this good. I don't think Alvin Kamara is going to run for 5 yards a carry every single game. I just don't think he has that in him anymore. I don't think that Derek Carr is going to be able to throw for 4 touchdowns every single week. That defense, it's hard to know because Bryce Young played so bad, but I'd like to give him some props. Saints look good. I just don't think we can expect that level of play out of them every single week, so cautiously, I'm only moving them up a little bit. At number 19, the Pittsburgh Steelers. And this is a team that we kind of knew what they are, right? We kind of knew what they were. Justin Fields comes in and starts. Sounds like he's going to start week 2. My little conspiracy theory is Russell Wilson wasn't actually hurt, which is why he was dressed on the sideline, and they just wanted Justin Fields to start because it was that close. Justin Fields does his job, wins the game, gets him in position for 6 field goals, but it was mostly TJ Watt. TJ Watt was a game wrecker there. He only ended up with 1 sack, but if you count the ones that got called back due to penalty, he ended up with 3 forced fumbles, 2 strip sacks, and about 4 sacks total. He was a monster, and he's my personal front runner for Defensive Player of the Year right now. The Pittsburgh Steelers are going to rely on their defense, and they're going to find a way to win 9 games again, because of course they are. At 18, the Jacksonville Jaguars, and they held tough against a good Miami Dolphins team. They shut down that offense for the first half of the game, which I was very, very impressed by. The offense on their side of things needs to be a little more explosive. Trevor Lawrence needs to get up to speed, but it's week 1. They did a good job against a really good opponent. They get to stand pat at 18 for now. At 17, the Arizona Cardinals, and you might think, Jeremy, that's a little too high for the Arizona Cardinals, don't you think? I don't. I think the Arizona Cardinals are a very good offensive team. We saw them go toe-to-toe with Josh Allen and the Buffalo Josh Allens, right? This is a team that can keep pace with anyone. If they get Marvin Harrison involved in the offense, keep that running game going the way it is, this is a team that could be dangerous. Now, that defense is also going to be a mess, but if the Bills can win games with their defense, the Cardinals can win games with their defense. Honestly, I think those two teams are kind of comparable. The only difference right now is one has Josh Allen and the other does not have Josh Allen. But that's the first half of the NFL Power Rankings. We're going to take a quick break here. When we come back, we're going to get part 2 of the NFL Power Rankings, finish up our top half of the league. So stick around for that. We'll be right back here on Sports by GSMC Podcast Network.
Looking for your daily fix of sports talk without having to pay for it? GSMC Sports Network is available on YouTube. Just search GSMC Sports Network. Get your fix of daily sports talk shows on YouTube. Absolutely free. NFL, college football, NBA, MLB, MMA, UFC, fantasy football, and so much more. GSMC Sports Network has shows running all day long, with new sports shows starting every 2 hours. Just like on your favorite cable sports channel, except GSMC Sports Network is absolutely free. Just search GSMC Sports Network on YouTube to catch one of your new favorite shows, like the GSMC College Football Podcast, Chip Shot Football Podcast, Hoops and Heels Women's Sports Podcast, GSMC Basketball Podcast, and so many more. Check it out for yourself. GSMC Sports Network, now available on YouTube absolutely free. Search GSMC Sports Network on YouTube.
Welcome back to Sports by GSMC Podcast Network. I am your host, Jeremy Lapidus. Today is Tuesday, September 10th, and if you are just tuning in, we've just gone over the first half of the NFL Power Rankings. We went through 32 to 17. You can go and check that out if you are curious. We're going to finish up our NFL Power Rankings in this segment, but before we do, remember, if you would like to be an even bigger part of the show than you already are, all you need to do is go to gsmcpodcast.net. Or if you are on YouTube, you can use that super chat feature. If you do either of those two things, a message should pop up on the bottom of the screen for you, me, and everybody else around the world to see. If you do have a burning question about sports, anything at all that you would like to ask, go ahead and throw that in the comments. Throw it in the chat. I will get to it as soon as I possibly can. I appreciate everybody so much for sticking around, talking some sports with me here on a beautiful Tuesday afternoon. But like I was saying, in this segment, we are going to finish up our NFL Power Rankings. We left off at number 17 with the Arizona Cardinals, and we're going to continue at number 16 with another bird in the same division, the Seattle Seahawks. The Seattle Seahawks come in at 16, up a couple of spots after taking care of the Broncos. Their defense looked solid. The one thing I'm concerned about is, their offensive line. They're going to be fine offensively. They were able to put up points. Their offensive line gave up 2 safeties though. And that's a little concerning. That's at least one too many safeties against a Broncos team than I am willing to just go past. 2 safeties in a game is a lot. You got to work on that a little bit. The Seahawks defensively did their job. They figured out how to stop Bo Nix. Just tackle the ball carrier when he dumps it off. Pass rush is there. The Seahawks defense, if they can keep this up, could be a dangerous team. We'll see what happens, though. The Seahawks are at number 16. At 15, I have the Green Bay Packers, and I didn't want to punish them too harshly. The Packers are a very good team. But what we saw in the 2 plays without Jordan Love is very, very concerning to me. Jordan Love led this Packers team toe-to-toe with one of the best teams in the NFL in the Philadelphia Eagles, but they lost him, and we saw 2 plays of Malik Willis. Now, they were in late-game situations, so we don't know exactly what he's going to do. He's still new to this team. They traded for him from the Titans just 2 weeks ago, right before the season started. First throw, way off target. Second throw, trying to get a Hail Mary off. He doesn't even get a throw off, and that is very concerning. This is a Green Bay Packers team that had championship aspirations from some people. This is a Green Bay Packers team that is built young. They need Jordan Love back, and until they do, I feel like they're just going to keep slipping because they played solidly everywhere else against a very good team, but they fall 5 spots to number 15 for me. Number 14 goes to the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. I was low on them. They come out, granted, against a bad Commanders defense, and Baker Mayfield carves them up. 4 touchdowns. One of the best quarterback performances in the entirety of Week 1. If the Bucs can keep this up against a real defense, they could be trouble again. They're probably front runners in their division. I was a little lower on them because I thought the Falcons would be able to overtake it. But what we saw out of Kirk Cousins and the Falcons as opposed to Tampa Bay and Baker Mayfield, one of these teams looks like a good team. The other one looks like they're in shambles. The Bucs move up to 14. At number 13, the Buffalo Bills, or should I say the Buffalo Josh Allens. Josh Allen looks phenomenal. Josh Allen looks like a real MVP candidate. He single-handedly willed this team to a win over the Arizona Cardinals. Whether it be rushing, passing, defense, I'm sure you could throw him out there, and he would be one of the best players in that position. He looked incredible. He got the ball out to 9 different receivers. Keon Coleman, the rookie, led the team in yards. Khalil Shakir scored a touchdown. This is good Josh Allen football. He didn't turn the ball over that often. I believe he had 1 turnover. I don't have the stats in front of me. I apologize, but Josh Allen looked awesome. Again, I've seen the Bills ranked as high as 3 in some of these, which I think is ridiculous. They're not better than Chiefs, 49ers, Lions, Ravens, Texans, Eagles, Cowboys, so on and so forth. The people ahead of my power rankings, at least obviously in my opinion, but I think the Bills are good. They're a fringe playoff team, and Josh Allen is a true MVP contender this year. At 12, the Los Angeles Rams. They lose a heartbreaker in Detroit. They played really good football. They lose Puka Nacua. It doesn't matter. Cooper Kupp is here. 14 catches, career high. Touchdown, 110 yards. He went off against a solid Lions defense. The one thing, obviously, that stuck out in this game was the offensive line, and yet they were able to go up against a good pass rush and send it to overtime. They had a huge comeback in that second half, and maybe it's because the Lions got a little more conservative, got a little comfortable with the lead, but they were able to come all the way back. Matt Stafford looks good. He got banged up a little bit, but the Rams, they could be dangerous this year. At 11, the Indianapolis Colts, and this is probably my hottest take in this whole power rankings. I love Anthony Richardson. If you've been watching this, you know how high I am on Anthony Richardson. I've seen people rank the Colts all the way down in the 20s, and that, I think, is quite frankly ridiculous. I don't see how they're worse than a team like the Commanders, or they're worse than a team like the Chargers, when Anthony Richardson can casually flick the ball off of his back foot, fading away 70 yards in the air after slipping. That is not normal. No one, I have never seen a throw like that in my entire life. On top of that, he's the fastest guy on the field. He wills them to nearly a massive comeback against a really, really good Texans team, a Texans team that I have in my top 5 this week, and the Colts are getting no respect for it. Sure, his stat line was 9 for 19, and sure, he missed a couple of throws, but it's also only his 5th ever game starting in the NFL, and people need to remember that. I know I'm high on him, but they're making it so that any kind of missed pass is an unforgivable mistake. But look at him. Look at him and tell me he's not the best athlete in the game right now. Look at him and tell me he doesn't have the greatest arm in football. Look at this Colts team and tell me that they are the 25th best team in football. You're wrong. I just cannot comprehend why people are so low on the Colts, and I understand maybe I'm a little too high on them. Let's meet in the middle, put them somewhere at 15, 16. I'm happy with that. In the 20s? No, that is ridiculous. And I think the Colts need some more respect, and hopefully they get it with Anthony Richardson. They just play a different style of football. I love this Colts team. I think they're a very, very dangerous team this year. At number 10, we've hit the top 10, the Cincinnati Bengals. And the Bengals, I know, just got completely embarrassed at home against the New England Patriots, a team that seemed like the worst team in football heading into the year. The Cincinnati Bengals, I know, only put up 10 points. I know they turned the ball over in very inopportune times. I know Joe Burrow didn't look good, but the Bengals always start slow, and I don't want that to be an excuse. They still fall 5 spots for me. I had them in the top 5 heading into the year. They just need to get it together. They had a lot of drama in this offseason. We talked about the 49ers and the Jets drama this offseason, but Jamar Chase, T. Higgins, they both were in the midst of weird contract things. Their star defensive player, Trey Hendrickson, asked for a trade at some point in the offseason as well. They had a bunch of injuries. This was just not a good week for them. They'll put it back together. I think this is still a very good Cincinnati Bengals team. At number 9, the New York Jets. And we talked about the Jets, how disappointing they are defensively. But again, this is a team that just needs to get some cohesion together. The Jets and the Bengals both still deserve to be in the top 10 because they're very talented teams. I understand if you want to push them out. I really do. But I'm banking on the upside of these two teams, these two quarterbacks, these two coaching staffs to turn it around after a very disappointing week 1 for both of them. In the 8th spot, we have the newly minted $60 million man, and the Dallas Cowboys. Dak Prescott signs a new contract. They head into Cleveland, absolutely decimate them. The running game looked solid, surprisingly. Zeke did a good job. You didn't have a lot of CeeDee Lamb, but you didn't need a lot of CeeDee Lamb. There were some issues there. The defense still looked great, but I'm going to put that more on the fault of the Browns being bad. But the Cowboys look dangerous in the NFC. Looks like they could make a run. Looks like the Cowboys of what we expected them to be are back. I still need to see them in high-pressure games before I raise them into the top 5, but they looked really, really good on all units. Heck, their kicker hit a 66-yarder that I think would have been good from 71 if they ended up letting him try it, which still a little peeved they didn't let him try it. That would have been fun. I always root for long kicks. It's always fun to see. Maybe later on in the season, Aubrey will get a chance to hit that. But Cowboys sit at 8 for now. At number 7, we have Saquon Barkley and the Philadelphia Eagles. Saquon Barkley, 3 touchdowns in his debut. Go up against a good Packers unit. Put up over 30 points on them in Brazil on sloppy field conditions. I cannot wait to see what they do when they get good field conditions. They're not slipping all over the place. The defense is able to come back. Saquon makes this team head and shoulders better than they were last year, and they're going to be a fun team to watch. A.J. Brown goes off. He's getting faster as he get older. If you take a look at his top sprint speed, he's only getting faster. He ran the fastest he's ever run on his long touchdown in Brazil. I cannot wait to watch more Eagles football, honestly. At number 6, the Miami Dolphins. And again, this is another team that you might think is a little high, but we saw what they could do in the second half. They drove down the field after having an abysmal first half. Tua missed a couple throws that really could have blown this game open in the first half. Tyreek Hill had 1 touchdown that Tua just barely overthrew him on. This is a very good Dolphins team. I'm very encouraged by their defense, which is why I have them this high. This is a Dolphins team that can make a lot of noise this year in the NFL. Hitting the top 5. At number 5, we have the Houston Texans. I talked about the Colts a lot. I know I went on and on about them, but this is a Houston Texans team that beat them. They made no mistakes in this game. Their new additions looked phenomenal. Stephon Diggs scored 2 touchdowns. Joe Mixon scored a touchdown. Their defense did what they needed to against a good Colts offense. CJ Stroud made some of the craziest plays I've ever seen. On the knees to convert a 4th down play. One of the craziest sideline throws, getting to win the game on a 3rd and 12 to put this game away when they were up 2. This was an awesome game to watch. I cannot wait to see more CJ Stroud, Anthony Richardson battles in the future. These two teams will be very good for years to come. At number 4, the Baltimore Ravens. The highest ranked 0-1 team we have on our list here. The Baltimore Ravens almost beat the defending Super Bowl champions, the 2-time defending Super Bowl champions. It came down to a toe, and they didn't play their best game, and they were still in it against the Chiefs team that I was unbelievably impressed by. This is a Ravens team that I think can make a lot of noise, maybe even vie for a Super Bowl this year if they're able to get that run game going with Derrick Henry a little more. We talked about it when we broke down that Thursday night game about a week ago. Derrick Henry needs the ball like he did on that first drive. He doesn't need to get 30 carries a game like he did in Tennessee, but, give him 4 carries, a drive. Keep him out there. At least do play action with him. He gets better as the game goes on, as the defense wears down, and we even saw that. For the limited amount of carries he had in the second half, he was breaking off bigger and bigger runs. The Ravens don't seem like they're going to use him like that, and I think that's a mistake. This is a team that needs to use Derrick Henry the right way if they're going to be successful. We'll see if they do that. For now, they sit at 4. Number 3, the Detroit Lions. This is a team that would use Derrick Henry correctly, and I think it would be so cool to see Derrick Henry on this team. David Montgomery in overtime. Pound the rock through that defense over and over and over again. Just bowling through them, getting them down to the goal line, scoring that touchdown. This Lions team is a lot of fun. I want to see more out of the passing game. Williams looked awesome. Amon-Ra got just about nothing. Jared Goff was a little uncomfortable, as he is when he's under pressure. Hopefully that gets fixed, but that run game is as good as ever. Jahmyr Gibbs needs to be a little bit better, but you have that awesome lightning thunder 1-2 punch with him and David Montgomery. This is going to be a tough team to beat. They're here at 3. At number 2, the San Francisco 49ers. And They're here because they got Trent Williams back. I said they were sitting at 4 last week because they didn't have Trent Williams, and you see the difference. 0 pressures allowed from Trent Williams. He was the leader in a rushing attack that didn't have the best running back in football and still put up 150 yards rushing. That's insane what they did. The San Francisco 49ers sit at 2. They dropped too many passes to be at 1. And that leaves, of course, the number 1 team in the NFL, the Kansas City Chiefs. The Kansas City Chiefs have no reason not to be number 1. They've won 2 straight Super Bowls. They have the best player in the world. They looked scary offensively. Xavier Worthy adds a new element of speed that can stretch the field both horizontally and vertically. Very dangerous combination with, Rashee Rice, who was killing on those little slant post kind of routes, short slant posts against linebackers, killing the zone. Travis Kelce, his connection with Patrick Mahomes is going to be what it's going to be. And they have that power running element with Isaiah Pacheco. The defense looked really good. Chris Jones getting anything he wanted. This is a Chiefs team that has very few weaknesses. Last year was the year to take them out, and the entire NFL failed. It's going to be tough this year. The Kansas City Chiefs sit at number 1. But let me know what you think of these power rankings. I'll run through the top 10 real quick for you. Cincinnati Bengals at 10, Jets at 9, Cowboys 8, Eagles 7, Dolphins 6, Texans 5, Ravens 4, Lions 3, Niners 2, and the Kansas City Chiefs at 1. Let me know if you thought your team was too high, too low. I'd love to hear your thoughts on anything we talked about in this list. We're going to take a quick break. When we come back, we're going to continue ranking things. Big ranking episode today, guys. We're going to take a look at the top 25 in college football and take a look at the group of 5 as well with the G5 T5, the group of 5 top 5. So stick around for that. We'll be right back here on Sports by GSMC Podcast Network.
For the best and latest podcasts available anywhere, go to the podcast app on your cell phone and type in GSMC to access free content-rich podcasts on health and wellness, book reviews, sports, entertainment, relationships, social media, movies, technology, finance, and even weird news. Subscribe and download the GSMC Podcast Network's family of shows, available everywhere podcasts are found.
Welcome back to Sports by GSMC Podcast Network. I am your host, Jeremy Lapidus. Today is Tuesday, September 10th. If you are just tuning in, we've just gone through the NFL Power Rankings. In this segment, we're going to also rank a couple of things, this time turning our attention to the world of college football, doing a top 25 rankings there as well. But before we get into that, remember, if you would like to be an even bigger part of the show than you already are, all you need to do is go to gsmcpodcast.net. Leave a tip or donation with a message in it. That message should pop up on the bottom of the screen for you, me, and everybody else around the world to see. If you are on YouTube, you can use the super chat feature to do the exact same thing as well. Also, if you have a burning question about sports, anything at all that you would like to ask, go and throw that in the comments. Throw it in the chat. I will get to it as soon as I possibly can. I appreciate everybody so much for sticking around, talking some sports with me here on a beautiful Tuesday, September 10th. But like I was saying, we are going to get into the NCAA top 25 for you, my very own list here. We talked about the AP poll last week. I've got a bigger problem with it this week. I don't like especially the bottom of it, but we'll get to that here in just a second. At number 25, the Illinois Fighting Illini. The Illinois Fighting Illini come in here after taking down Kansas, a top 20 ranked team in the country. They just looked really solid defensively, offensively, and the AP poll put Northern Illinois in there, and I think Northern Illinois did a great job against a great team in Notre Dame. Or maybe not a great team, against a solid defense in Notre Dame. But I think Illinois was a little more impressive, and I'm giving them the nod over Northern Illinois. At 24, we have a group of 5 contender in here, one that even lost a game, Boise State. And Boise State looks so good. They took Oregon, a top 10 ranked program, to the ropes, all the way down to the wire. Ashton Jeanty did his thing, 200 yards and 3 touchdowns, adding to his total. He now on 2 games in this season, 467 yards and 9 touchdowns, which is ridiculous. He is a Heisman contender. The Boise State Broncos are in my top 25 at number 24. 23, another team that was not in the rankings last week, the Nebraska Cornhuskers. Nebraska comes in, they look like they're finally back. You have little Patrick Mahomes and Dylan Raiola taking down a team in Colorado that's just way too overhyped, but that defense stepped up. The trenches looked good. The passing attack looked really good with new quarterback Raiola. They should be really good this year in the Big Ten. 22 goes to the Clemson Tigers, a team that I disrespected a little bit. I put them too low last week. I put them all the way down at 24. They put up 66. 66 against App State, 30 in the first half. Maybe Georgia's just that good, holding Clemson to 6 points, 3 points in the first half. Not where you want to be if you are Clemson, but they looked really good in their second game. They had the offense going. Clemson sits at 22 in my rankings. At 21, the Syracuse Orange, yet another team that was not ranked last week. Another team that, curiously for me, is not on the AP 25. I love this Syracuse team. They add former Ohio State quarterback Kyle McCord. He looks awesome. That running game with their 2 running backs that can pass, catch, phenomenal. The wide receivers are great. They're big. They're physical. They're not afraid to go toe-to-toe with anyone. This is a really good Syracuse Orange team. That defense is solid as well. They're in the running for the ACC. It's interesting. It's kind of getting a little crowded at the top there outside of Miami. At number 20, Iowa State. The Cyclones come in after winning the Cy-Hawk rivalry for the first time in a while. They have a huge come-from-behind win in the second half where they had nothing going in the first half. Obviously going up against the vaunted defense of Iowa. Both offenses couldn't do anything. Iowa State, with their returning offense production, just was able to do a little bit more, win this game. Huge comeback win for the Cyclones. They slide into the top 25 at number 20. At 19, the Michigan Wolverines, and they just got embarrassed by the second best team in the nation in Texas. Texas is awesome. We already punished the Wolverines a lot for being close against Fresno State, but that offense, we didn't learn anything else. They moved down another 3 spots on my personal ranking to 19, and if their offense looks bad again, if they lose another game, they're going to fall out of that top 25. They're really in danger of that, but for now, they stay in the top 20 at number 19. 18 goes to the Louisville Cardinals. And the Louisville Cardinals are maybe my darling team. I might be a little too high on them, but that offense looks dangerous. If they can work on their rushing defense a little bit, they're going to be a scary team in the ACC. They take on Miami soon. That's going to be a really interesting game. I think that could be a lot closer. I forget if that's next week or this week, but keep an eye out for that. That could be a really good game. Louisville is number 18 on my top 25. 17 goes to Arizona. The Wildcats have a very explosive offense. It kind of didn't look too good. Last week, they survived a scare, a much closer game than you want it to be, but they look good anyway. I like this Arizona team a lot. I love Noah Fifita. I love T-Mac. This offense is going to carry them through a lot of games. They have the longest winning streak in in all of college football now. So another thing going for them after Michigan lost theirs to Texas this week. At 16, the Oklahoma Sooners, and they barely survive a group of 5 Houston team that looked a little disappointing. Now, that's not to say that Houston is a bad team. Houston's a very solid group of 5 team, but they fall just outside of that G5, T5 that we're going to go over later on in this segment. So a little bit of concern for them for me. At 15, the LSU Tigers. They took care of business against a bad team after losing to a good team last week. They're up 4 spots to number 15. Not much to say about them until we see them against the SEC again. The offense is going to do its thing. I still need to see more out of the defense, but the defense looked good enough. At 14, Oklahoma State, and that was an ugly, ugly game that took place with Arkansas last week. I cannot give them anything for it. It was just ugly. They were able to escape with a double overtime victory, but they should have lost that game. They won because they're a good team. Good teams find a way to win. That's how I'm taking a look at it. But it was a scare, and it was not a good scare. I don't love this Oklahoma State team as much as I used to. Same thing can be said for number 13, the Kansas State Wildcats. Yet again, another team that just cannot quite get it done against a good group of 5 team in Tulane. But they probably should have lost that game. They got lucky with some penalties at the end that stopped Tulane from really making a statement win. But this is a very good Kansas State team. Again, good teams find a way to win. Bad teams find a way to lose. And sometimes the refs just play a part in that. Kansas State escapes with a win against Tulane, a game that at the very least should have gone to overtime. Kansas State wins in wild fashion. And now we get to the top 12. This right here, this top 12 is, I think, undeniably the top 12 teams in the nation. You can have them in just about any order you want. But 13 to 25, I think all of those are arguable. I think 12 to 1, those 12 teams are by far the best teams, and they have separated themselves. Now, you can say, hey, maybe they have a chance to fall out. They do. My number 12 team is Oregon. They looked really bad, but they've won both games. They're just super disappointing. I still think they're a playoff team. And I think comfortably these top 12 teams are the top 12 teams in the nation until something drastic happens. So, getting into these top 12, the Oregon Ducks. Again, they've looked really disappointing. They almost lose to Boise State, who I love Boise State as a G5 team. They're very good. The Ducks need to get offensive line help now. Their defense needs to step up now, because if they play a good Big Ten team, and they play like this, they're going to be in trouble. Dylan Gabriel's doing his thing offensively. They're not getting any big plays, though, and they need to get some of that before they fall out of this top 12. But for now, they're still in that top group. They've done enough. 11, Penn State. They almost lose to Bowling Green, and Bowling Green's still a solid team. Everyone thinks everyone's underrating Bowling Green a little bit, but it's not enough that Penn State should have looked like this. Penn State was in real danger of losing this game, and Drew Aller, if he can continue to play like this, they shouldn't be in position to lose this game because their defense should be better than this. Need to see more of that defense. I'm very impressed by Drew Aller, though. I thought he wouldn't be this good. At 10, Utah, and they stay in the top 10, but it's very concerning. They do not have their best player. Cam Rising, hurt yet again. They look so good with him, and then they look so bad without him. The defense is going to do enough to keep them in it, but if they don't have Cam Rising as the season comes down the stretch, they're not going to stand a chance in the Big 12. If they do, I might pencil them in as champions right now, because I think they're a top 5 team in the country. They don't have Cam Rising, though, and we need to know how severe that injury is before we can put them any higher than 10. At number 9, the USC Trojans. They've done enough. Their defense has done enough for me to put them in the top 10. They take down LSU last week, a hard-fought victory, and then they take care of business against a bad team. They move up to the top 10, stay in that top group of teams. Same thing with Miami. I think Miami clearly head and shoulders. It's their conference to lose in the ACC, but that's not to say they should get comfortable. Louisville is going to provide a challenge. They play them. They play Syracuse, another team that might provide a challenge. Miami needs to keep their head on a swivel and play like they did against Florida, like they did this week, if they want to stay clearly on top. At number 7, Tennessee, and that offense is scary. They take down a top 25 team in NC State, one that I had outside of my top 25 personally, but Tennessee's offense is dangerous. They built pretty solidly in the trenches, and that's why this team is so good. This is a team that could make a lot of noise, and if everything plays out the way it's going, they should be a shoo-in for the playoffs. At number 6 is Missouri, and maybe I'm a little high on them. I have them ranked the same place as the AP poll, surprisingly. I like this team a lot. Missouri is a team that I thought would be the first one out, but their offense is doing its thing. I want to see their defense keep this up. Their defense is the big thing that this whole thing hinges on. They lost some great defensive talent to the draft, to the transfer portal. We'll see what happens, but for now, Missouri sits at number 6. Heading into the top 5, Alabama. They almost lost this one. If you look at the box score, it doesn't look close, But in the third quarter, they were only up by 1 point. That's not where you want to be. Alabama is a very good football team. They're able to show that they can pull away quickly, but it was a little sketchy there. A little sketchy there for a second. You can't play that bad against some teams and be able to come back if you play a Georgia or, you play a Tennessee. Teams like that in the SEC, you need to play your best football, but they show that they can score points in bunches at the end there. So they drop a spot, but they stay in the top 5. And I think the top 4 in the nation is kind of undebatable. At number 4, Ole Miss. Ole Miss has dominated everyone. Now, granted, they haven't played the greatest competition, but they look good in the trenches, and that offense with Jackson Dart is going to do its thing. If they can hold up defensively, especially on the defensive and offensive lines, they'll be able to be a very good team this year. Number 3 goes to Ohio State, and I'm punishing them only because, actually, I'm not even punishing them. I had them at number 3 last week. But we saw what Texas did to Michigan. They pulled ahead of Ohio State in the discussions. They're clearly the second best team in the country. Ohio State is a close third, and they could overtake it if they do good against some good competition. They just haven't played that competition, gotten that statement win like Georgia and Texas have. So for now, they sit at number 3. At number 2, that put Texas dominating in the Big House, a tough place to go in and play. They just shut down that Michigan team. Didn't allow a touchdown until garbage time. Their offense got just about everything they wanted. Texas looks like a very dangerous team, and I cannot wait to see more of them. And at number 1, the Georgia Bulldogs. Georgia's scary, man. You saw what Clemson did to App State, and that only makes me think, how good is this Georgia defense? If Clemson is putting 66 points up against a solid group of 5 team, what are they doing? What makes the Georgia defense hold them to 6 points? They scored 60 more points against App State than Georgia, and I don't think that is a 60-point difference between teams. Maybe I'm just way off here. Maybe they needed a week to click, but Georgia is a very, very scary team. Before we finish off this segment, I have been teasing this group of 5, top 5. Let's hit that real quick. At number 5 in the group of 5, top 5, we have Tulane. Their quarterback, Darian Mensah, looks like an NFL caliber player. He looked really good against Kansas State. They lost the game, which is why they sit at 5. Number 4, Memphis, a very solid group of 5 team, continuing to collect some wins. They're in the receiving vote section right now. They're a dangerous team. Northern Illinois, of course, they just knock off Notre Dame, a team that I don't have in my top 25. That offense is too bad for them to be there. I like Northern Illinois. I need to see them have it another time as opposed to just one big victory for them to be higher on this list. At 2, UNLV, they again are in the receiving vote section. They just continue to get more and more quality wins, and that leaves Boise State at the top. Boise State is ranked in my top 25. At 24, they are awesome. Ashton Genty, Heisman candidate, maybe even Heisman frontrunner right now. Boise State seems to have a lock on that group of 5 spot as long as the season doesn't spiral from here. But let me know what you think of my top 25. Let me know what you think of anything else we talked about in this segment. We're going to take a quick break. When we come back, we're going to finish off the show talking about NFL rookie quarterbacks and their performances. So stick around for that. We'll be right back here on Sports by GSMC Podcast Network. Welcome back to Sports by GSMC Podcast Network. I am your host, Jeremy Lapidus. If you are just tuning in, we've just gone through the NCAA Top 25, as well as the Group of 5 Top 5, the G5, T5, if you will. In this segment, we're going to finish off our show talking about the rookie quarterback performances from Week 1 of the NFL. We had 3 rookies start, 3 rookies not look the best. Some of them look just fine. We'll go through all of them in just a second, but before we do, remember, if you would like to be an even bigger part of the show than you already are, all you need to do is go to gsmcpodcast.net. Or if you are on YouTube, you can use that super chat feature. If you do either of those two things, a message should pop up on the bottom of the screen for you, me, and everybody else around the world to see. If you do have a burning question about sports, anything at all that you would like to ask, go ahead and throw that in the comments. Throw it in the chat. I appreciate anything you guys do have to say. Appreciate you all sticking around, talking some sports with me here on a beautiful Tuesday, September 10th. But like I was saying, we're going to finish off our show today talking about rookie quarterbacks. And they were all kind of disappointing, wouldn't you say? Jaden Daniels is the only one that I would classify as having even an okay game. You take a look at his stats: 17 for 24, 184 yards, 88 rush yards, and 2 touchdowns in a team loss. That rushing production, that's why he's going to be special. 2 touchdowns on the ground, they were both from 1 yard out, but that completion percentage is really the main thing I'm looking at. 17 for 24, 184 yards, puts him just about in the middle of where production was at for NFL quarterbacks as a whole. Just about the same as Aaron Rodgers, just about the same as Brock Purdy, a little bit less than him, but in between those two guys, sitting at 184, Jaden Daniels had a solid day down in Tampa. Now, the game script called for it. He did his job. Jaden Daniels was the best rookie quarterback by head and shoulders this weekend. That's not to say he's going to be the best no matter what, but for now, he was the best. And there's a lot to improve on still. There still is. Some of the accuracy down the field wasn't the greatest. His timing wasn't the greatest. He held the ball for a little bit too long. He didn't target Terry. Terry McLaurin is going to be very helpful for a young quarterback with his skill sets as a receiver, and he did not get targeted. But that's something that can be worked on. Then there's Caleb Williams. And Caleb Williams kind of just played a neutral game. Now, it was bad. 14 for 29, 93 yards, only 15 yards rushing, took 2 sacks. All of these quarterbacks took 2 sacks. Caleb Williams had pressure in his face the whole game. And the key thing here with both Jaden Daniels and Caleb Williams is they didn't turn the ball over. And that's the biggest thing that you're looking for in the first start for a rookie. As much as it would be awesome for them to go off for 400 yards, 4 touchdowns, look like a star in the NFL, that's just honestly not realistic. In your first start, there's a lot to get used to. The speed of the game, like everyone says, from preseason, from college to preseason to the NFL, it's all a huge step. It's all just about twice as hard from what I've heard. It's much faster. They need to get used to that. Caleb Williams didn't turn the ball over, and that's all you can ask for. They won the game because he didn't turn the ball over. They didn't win the game because of him, but they won the game because he didn't turn the ball over, and he can improve later on in his career. And that leads us up to Bo Nix. And Bo Nix looked awful. So bad. Bo Nix, 26 for 42 pass attempts. Completes 26 of them for 128 yards, 2 interceptions, rushes for 35 and a touchdown. Gets that garbage time touchdown on a scramble. Bo Nix looked awful. And you look at that stat line at first, and you say, oh, I mean, it wasn't that bad. 2 interceptions. But the big thing to point out here is he could not throw the ball downfield, point blank, period. Bo Nix was 2 for 12 with 2 interceptions on balls that were 10 or more yards in the air. That is 24 completions on balls that are checkdowns. That is ridiculous. You cannot win games like that when you just simply can't win like games like that. When you cannot push the ball vertically, when the running game isn't getting anything going, you need your quarterback to be able to push the ball downfield, keep a defense honest. The Seahawks were able to cheat up. They were able to get pressure on Bo Nix, and he did not handle it well. Maybe he can improve, but he was late. He wasn't comfortable. He was looking for windows that needed to be wide open as opposed to just kind of open windows. In the NFL, they're not going to be as open as they were in college, and Bo Nix has a lot of starting experience. He looked the worst by far. He needs to be able to throw the ball downfield, and until he can do that, he is not a startable player in the NFL. He made too many mistakes. Mistakes are killers, especially in a 6-point game. Your defense did its job. They got 2 safeties, for God's sake. They did their job to keep you in the game, and they were the Broncos and Bo Nix were unable to do anything with it. Very disappointed by most of these rookie quarterbacks. Caleb Williams and Jaden Daniels, their debuts were fine. Bo Nix, very disappointed in. If I'm doing grades, Jaden Daniels gets a C+, Caleb Williams gets a D+, Bo Nix gets an F. They did their jobs. Caleb Williams, I'll bump it up to a C- because they won the game. But Bo Nix, I need to see more out of. All of these guys I need to see more out of. That's the rookie report for now. We'll do more on the rookies as we get later on into the season. We'll keep an eye on them. Maybe we get some Michael Penix action. Maybe we get some Spencer Rattler action. I doubt we get some Spencer Rattler action, but maybe we get some Michael Penix action later on this season. I'll keep you updated on the rookie quarterbacks, but thank you everybody so much for tuning in to today's episode of Sports by GSMC Podcast Network. I have been your host, Jeremy Lapidus. Remember, we'll be talking sports every weekday, 5 to 6 p.m., right here on GSMC Podcast Network, anywhere you are watching. Again, I appreciate all you guys tuning in. Tomorrow, we'll be talking about all of the biggest stories, still stuff from this weekend to cover. We still have to talk about Jamal Murray. We'll talk about that tomorrow and anything else that pops up. But you all have a great rest of your day, and I will see you then. Bye-bye.
Let's go. I'm trying to feel like it's gonna be a bad day. Damn tired of shit, and the coffee ain't hit yet. Damn.